But the moment government comes out with the rule that, hey, we are going to tax the farmers, the top 1% farmers are going to come together, they are going to organize a march, and they are going to make this a politically debatable issue. But can you, as a salaried class person who is being asked to pay more and more taxes every year, can you do the same? The answer is no. So we have reached a situation where a rich farmer making more than 1 crore rupee a year pays 0% taxes, but a corporate person making a salary of 25,000 ends up paying direct income taxes. Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. So on today's video, we are going to systematically discuss with data as to why the salaried class in India is getting crushed day by day. You might have witnessed around you that the महंगाई or inflation is going up day by day. You might have also seen that the taxes are increasing day by day. You might have also seen that you're not getting enough returns on your fixed deposits and everything is just going haywire. So why is that the case? I will explain you the entire flow. You will understand this point systematically, but let me first and foremost show you two very important graphics that will help you understand the flow of the story better. So graphic number 1 is here. So what you would observe is that India's tax base is very small to begin with. According to this estimate, because there are different estimates to taxation, according to this estimate, only 5.8% population of India pays direct income tax. There are two types of taxations in India. GST, for example, is an indirect tax. Everyone pays it. But when it comes to direct taxes, only a very small fractional population of India pays those type of taxes. If you compare it to UK, almost 46% of their population pays direct income taxes. In US, almost 43% pays direct income taxes. So of course, there is something fundamentally off here. This is the first key point. The second key graphic, take a look at this. People look extremely happy in this picture. Why? I don't know. But the graphic outlines that in India, the effective tax rate is 42.7%. This tax rate is really high. Now I would get a lot of counter question that Akshat, in like Norwegian countries, the tax rate is like 60%. In some European countries, again 60% tax. Yes, but they get like free social security. They get like healthcare. They get like support when you retire. In case you don't have a job, you might get some support also. So of course that 60% tax is justifiable in some countries, but 42-43% tax in India, you really need to ask why you are paying so much tax. So if you aggregate picture 1 and picture 2, what is it that you can outline? Think a little bit critically. You can easily decode the fact that government is taxing a very small base of people and they are trying to charge as high tax as possible. This is a simple story and I will give you facts, figures, rationale as to why this is happening. And I will tell you how through a simple step this situation in India can change. So I will explain the story in 5 simple steps. Also, a very big shout out to our sponsors for today, which is Golden Pie. It's one of India's foremost bond investing platform and you can go and scout for different bonds, explore for different options and undertake some positions in bonds. Because right now the FD rates are really bad. If you go to the market, it is mostly moving sideways. So bond becomes a great option in case you're looking for slightly lower risk options. So you can go on the platform, scout through different range of options. You can also look at bond IPOs and then depending on your risk profile, risk appetite, you can take some positions in bonds. So the point number 1 in India regarding taxation is that the rich farmers in India do not get taxed. According to a 2012 RTI information, there were approximately 8 lakh rich farmers who did not pay even a single rupee of income tax despite having an earning of more than 1 crore rupee. This is madness. I would love to know how many people from India, from other professions who make this crazy kind of money do not pay any income tax. Now please note, I am not against farmers. If the farmers really need the money, help, assistance, government should come out and support them. And we as taxpayers will be very happy to extend that support. But please tell me what logical sense does it make that if someone is making 1 crore rupee through farming, why should the taxpayers like you and me should support that farmer in terms of paying 0 income tax? This just does not add up. I would love to know your point of view and when I show you the next picture, your blood might boil. So who is the beneficiary of these 0% taxation? Take a look at this. There is a very funny story about Mr. Amitabh Bachchan who declared himself as a farmer somewhere in UP. No, he was not incorrect in terms of doing that because he owned agriculture land and whatever money he was making on that agriculture land, it became a tax-free income for him. So who are the beneficiaries of these kind of things? These are rich farmers, super rich people owning like more than 10 acres of land. These could be actor, actresses. It could be MNCs like Monsanto, which is one of the biggest agricultural companies in the world. They are paying 0 taxes on their agricultural income and you and I as normal taxpayers end up aiding such expeditions. So these are very sad state of affairs, but this is the reality. Now you might say that Akshat, you know what, government might have a very hard time keeping a track of who rich farmers are versus who poor farmers are. Okay, so take a look at this particular graphic. An entire study has been done by the government itself. It says that as much as 67% of India's farmland is held by marginal farmers. These are small farmers with holding less than 1 hectare against less than 1% farmers who hold more than 10 hectares of land. So if someone is holding 10 hectares of land, is it not easy to identify who rich farmers are? Just take a look at the land holding and you can tax people based on land holding. A counter comment that I will get here is that Akshat, someone is holding a lot of land does not mean that they would be making money. Now it is like me saying that, hey, you know what, I have like 5 crore rupees in my bank. I'll go and buy like 5 properties. I have a lot of properties. I'm not able to make any cash flows from it. So does that mean that I'm poor? The answer is no, right? So the same argument can be made about land holding. If you can just literally figure out 1% rich farmers by looking at the amount of land that they hold and tax them, your problem is solved. This is such an easy step to do. What will be the benefit? So according to a research report by Erstwhile Planning Commission, this was a study and I'm flashing it in front of you, that if India starts taxing even 0.04% large farmer household, not one, 0.04%, as well as farm companies at the top 30% threshold, then annual tax gain of approximately 50,000 crore can be achieved. 50,000 crore. Now that can support the largest public expenditure that happens in India on a scheme called as Manrega for 1 year. That's a national employment guarantee scheme that supports a lot of people. So they can be completely supported by taxing 1% of rich farmers in India. And by doing that, you are expanding the tax base also. And it is very easy to ascertain also who the rich farmers are. So now the natural question comes that, okay, then why is it that farmers are not being taxed? The reason is very simple, that the government does not engage in practices that kills their vote banks. No specific government I'm speaking about, almost all the governments so far, they always go on the narrative that, hey, we are looking to support the farmers. Yes, do it. We love it, right? Support the farmers. I'm 100% for it. But why do you need to support the top 1% rich farmers? It doesn't make any sense. But the moment government comes out with the rule that, hey, we are going to tax the farmers, the top 1% farmers are going to come together. They are going to organize a march and they are going to make this a politically debatable issue. But can you, as a salaried class person who is being asked to pay more and more taxes every year, can you do the same? The answer is no. So we have reached a situation where a rich farmer making more than 1 crore rupee a year pays 0% taxes, but a corporate person making a salary of 25,000 ends up paying direct income taxes. So this brings us to point number 2, that if we are in a situation where only 5.8% of population in India pays direct income taxes, then in order to run the economy, they will have to be taxed more and more and more. Now government finds it very politically convenient to tax these salaried class people. Why? Because they are not organized. They can't do anything. They can't go on dharna. They have to still go to office every day. Their boss might even call them on Saturday and Sunday, give them additional work. So where are they going to sit on dharna and organize people? So they can't do it. So government finds it extremely convenient to call salaried people as rich people and tax them on crazy stuff. I had released a video on why the petrol and diesel prices in India are very high. You can check the entire video here. But a very quick synopsis of the case was that consider India and Nepal, for example. In India, the petrol prices are roughly 125 rupees per litre in Delhi. In Nepal, it is roughly 22 to 25 rupees cheaper. And interestingly, India is the one that is procuring crude oil for Nepal. It is refining it and giving it to Nepal. And in Nepal, the petrol and diesel prices are much cheaper than in India. In fact, the situation has become so funny that Bihar, which shares a border with Nepal, in some of the districts in Bihar, people travel to Nepal. They figure out a way to travel there. They smuggle petrol and diesel from Nepal and then they try to sell it in India. And that is how bad the situation has become in India on some of the items. Now, if you go and ask the government, why are you taxing petrol and diesel so high? It impacts everyone. It increases the inflation in the economy. It is impacting literally everyone. The answer usually remains that, you know what? Petrol and diesel is used by rich people. Therefore, we are taxing it. Now, as a result, the महंगाई in India or the inflation in India keeps on going up and up and up. These are very, very sad state of affairs. Now, if you aggregate the first and the second point that I just told you, the picture becomes very clear that the government taxes people whom they can very, very easily. If there is political inconvenience associated, for example, there is a lot of inconvenience in terms of taxing the farmers, the government just does not want to burn their hands by getting into that type of a debate. And this is the reason why the salaried class keeps on paying more and more taxes with each passing year. Now, many a times what happens is that people feel extremely frustrated. They tag the government and they make parliamentarians ask the question in the parliament, and we end up getting some really weird figures. So here is a figure of the number of taxpayers in India released by an official political party in India. I will not name it because the discussion then becomes political. So please feel free to tell me which political party is. I am removing the name of the political party here, but these were the numbers that were released by the political party's Twitter account. So you can clearly see they are saying that the number of taxpayers in India are now standing at 8.5 crores, and this is 2020, right? And then Income Tax Department, which is again controlled by the government, they release that now that only 1.46 crore individual taxpayers are liable to pay income taxes. So the government always creates a mirage. So mirage simply means that it creates an illusion by playing around with the numbers, giving you data which does not make sense, but de facto or as a matter of fact, the real numbers paint an entirely different picture. So which brings us to the third point, that rather than increasing the tax base, government does what? Because government still needs to make money. So they make money by increasing inflation. Now you would ask me, how does this process work? Okay, so let me take you to the whiteboard. So consider, for example, crude oil, right? So crude oil, India imports a lot of crude oil, and India is an energy hungry country, and we require a lot of crude oil to meet our energy needs. Now, whatever the international prices of crude is, ideally the prices of oil and diesel, which are byproduct of crude oil, they should reflect those international prices. For example, the prices internationally of crude oil is going up, then in India it is okay for oil and diesel prices to go up too. But when the crude oil falls, then petrol and diesel prices should come down proportionally. But that does not happen in India. Again, check my video here. I have explained this case entirely. You will get to understand it more. So that does not happen. Why is that the case? Because you need to think about it in the following manner. So India imports a lot of crude oil, and it makes a decision to subsidize it up to a certain point only. For example, if the government decides not to increase taxes, it's a form of a subsidy on crude oil. But government is not doing that. Government keeps on charging more and more tax. Why? Because according to their rationale, diesel and petrol is used by rich people. So government does not lend support, and as a result, the diesel and petrol prices keeps on going up in our economy. You can take a look at this particular chart. Now, many of you might have the question that, Akshat, you know what, maybe government is right in terms of charging high prices for petrol and diesel because it is used by people who have two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, and there's so much poverty in India. So probably our definition of rich might not match. And I 100% agree with you. But here is the important point that you need to remember about diesel petrol prices also. Take a look at this particular graphic. It categorically outlines the relationship between high inflation in India and high oil prices. Now, whenever the oil prices are high, the inflation in India creeps up higher. Now, high inflation simply means general price rise in the economy. Pyaz tomato ki rate badna. So that is what inflation is. Now, inflation actually impacts the poor people the most. There was an entire study that was done on this topic that inflation has a disproportionate impact on the well-being of the poor compared to the rich. Think about it this way, that for example, if you have 2 lakh rupees saved in your bank account, and if there is high inflation in the economy, then maybe that 2 lakh rupee becomes 1.5 lakhs. Yes, you will feel bad that, hey, I'm losing my money. But think about it from an extremely poor person's perspective. That poor person might not even have 1 rupee lying in the bank account. He or she would be lucky if they have a bank account in the first place. So as a result, when inflation goes up, so these poor people are unable to buy stuff. They also get a cut in their salaries because in the unorganized sector, these poor people are misguided. They are told by their bosses that, you know what, the prices are increasing everywhere. So how can I continue to pay you the same wage rate? So they cut their salaries too. Let me know if you agree with this viewpoint. So the end story becomes that this high inflation actually impacts the poor the most, and it cuts down on their well-being. So as a result, the poor people start depending on the government more and more for their sustenance. And when people make the argument that, hey, there is a reason why poor people vote a lot compared to rich class. This is the reason why, because they are completely dependent on the government, because the government has crippled them. Government gives them 5 rupees for free and then figures out a way to charge 6 rupee back from them in form of inflation and high indirect taxes. Which brings me to the fourth point, which is around high indirect and direct taxes in India. So take a look at this particular chart. So you will see that both direct taxes and indirect taxes in the economy is going up. Now, if the argument that were to be made in India was that, you know what, we need to tax the rich in order to subsidize the poor. Yes, a lot of people will be unhappy with that argument, but at least the ideology is socialist. But here what is happening is that both the direct taxes are going up. So for example, the salaried class, keep on paying high direct taxes also. And then even the indirect taxes are going up. So for example, you are paying higher income taxes and also you are paying high GST. In fact, the indirect tax situation in India is so bad that in terms of the developing countries, India has one of the highest indirect taxes in the world. So if you aggregate all these 4 points, here are 3 important lessons that you can learn from this story, which is the 5th and final point. First and foremost story is that in India, tax as much as you can to classes who are not politically aggregated. For example, salaried class are not politically aggregated. They do not do dharna. They cannot come together and form cartels, organizations, etc. to put forth their collective voice. So government would want to tax these type of people more and more. So going forward, there is no reason why the government will dial down on this narrative. On the flip side, the groups that are politically organized, don't tax them, even if it improves the tax base in India. Which brings us to point number 2, that distribute a lot of freebies make poor people dependent on the government. So they continue to support the governments and feel that the state is doing something for them. That brings us to third and final genius step, that whatever welfare you have done, charge it back in form of higher indirect taxes through GST, even to the poor people, plus inflation, and keep them forever poor so that you can continue to play around with this loop. So at the start of the video, I said that what could be a potential solution to all this problem? The potential solution is very easy. That increase the tax base in India, and the easiest way to do it is that have the guts to charge income tax from rich farmers. That is where the rationalization of taxes can start taking place. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please press the like button and share it with your friends, and I will see you the next time.